Welcome to another edition of Pack Talking. We have a special guest, Linn Boyke, who we have mentioned several times in the podcast. And so I figured we may as well get him on it himself. So welcome, Linn.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And Zeke knew right when we were starting there.
Where, Lena?
Say again.
Zeke knew right when we were starting there.
Yeah, he's like, don't forget me.
Oh,
right.
doily.
He's a West Coast shepherd.
Doily.
He's meant for show business.
Yeah.
He's good looking.
He is a good looking guy.
So we have Lena here, and we also have our boy Moose, who's one of our puppies. Right now he's in training, and we're polishing him up. We have a polished puppy program, and he's one of our Bernedoodles that we have 3 of. So welcome him to the
Sweet.
Yeah.
Welcome, little puppy.
Yeah, Moose. And Lena right here. Oh, Leeds. Okay, so let's get into it. Ben, you want to start us off with one of your questions?
Yeah, man. Well, first off, Lynn, thanks for coming on the podcast. We appreciate that.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, just appreciate your time. Something I do believe in, but I have a question for you. I know where you stand on it, but I would like you, I guess, just explain what comes first, the chicken or the egg? No, it is what comes first, pressure or energy? And you could, I'm sure you'll have a nice response to it, but I do believe that thought, just to not disagree or anything like that. But no, I agree in it, and I think a lot of people should hear your thoughts on it.
What do you agree on? I missed what you agreed on.
What comes first, pressure or energy?
What comes first to you?
Pressure does.
Yes,
only because of the perceiver, right?
Well, a perceiver is unable to have let's look at what energy is first. What's your definition of energy?
Energy for me is emotions times intentions, and for a human, it's followed through by body language.
All right, so there you go. So emotions can't occur unless there's something that triggers it, right? And I have identified and labeled everything with a pressure. There's 6 root forms of pressure, and pressure, I believe, comes first. Then, I have a little tree analogy that I do for my course, and it starts at the roots. And if you take little Johnny Appleseed and follow him into the woods where he digs a hole, he will jump up and land in that hole. And after a period of time, that seed pops open. And then those roots start to push forward and around and develop the core forms of pressure. And as it pops through the surface and becomes like a little trunk, that's where emotions start to build. And then you have the intentions that everybody would use with the emotion they're experiencing. For example, there's 4 of us. I was counting the 3 on the screen and then myself. I'm on the screen. So there's 3 of us. All 3 of us have experienced anger, but I guarantee that all 3 of our intentions with anger are different. So we have to look at and really understand all that from the perceiver point of view. And as you follow that trunk up the tree, we get into dog psychology. And the trunk is full of everything that in the dog world that utilizes dog psychology: search and rescue, guard dogs, guardians, all that stuff that they use the instincts of the dog for. And then you get up into the branches and you start creating obedience and fun stuff, agility and all that. And then the root to fruit. The fruit then is, it's, what do they call that when you go out and you pick it, basically. And then that harvest, and then that fruit is cut up and put into the number 1 apple pie recipe in the world, which then becomes what we want from our dogs, which would be, going to cafes, beaches, everywhere you want to go with your little buddy, your little pal, your furry fucking friend. But everybody generally starts at the pie. And that's where I think all the problem comes from. So after people eat the pie, they're like, oh, my pie wants to bite everybody's leg here at the cafe, or whatever behavioral issues or problems that they're having that obedience doesn't solve. So they have to work their way down to dog psychology. But if you really want to do it right, start at the roots, work your way through understanding how pressure works in the world and how, and the definition for me through my pressure matrix for pressure is it's a common ground of understanding that, again, communication through, have I started talking yet? Pressure is a common ground for understanding and communicating, and it's universal between all species. I posted a thing today to show how I had most people let their dogs chase the birds, but I broke it down and let's see what this bird's talking about, right? And in that post, I showed how the bird is actually using psychological pressure to draw my dog's instinctual side of them to chase. And, my dogs will do that all day if we stay in the same area. So I decided to follow the bird and watched it use pressure and then pressure and release as it escorted us out of its little territory to make sure that its eggs, because the killdeer bird is, they lay their eggs on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I learned that actually when I was 14, I think. And I was like, what the heck? Every day I come by here to my grandma's house, these birds are broken wings, but they fly away. So one day I just literally stopped moving and watched it. And it would try all these other areas to try and get me to follow, except for that one. And so I went that way, and then it would come in front of me and and I, what's going on? What are you hiding over here? And that's when I found the eggs. So the pressure matrix was developing long before I ever started to write about it and use it. But it's a common ground of understanding between all species. So people with dogs and family learning how to communicate properly is critical. So I believe pressure is first. Long-winded answer.
My thought is, before you teach people about how they feel or about what you necessarily want, you're going to be applying a pressure. And so for me, the pressure has to come before the energy. That's just even when I come through the house, I'm not going to try to get those people to calm down and to give their dog direction, because that's going to involve the leash. The first thing you always go to typically is try to relax the leash. Try to hold physical pressure straight up, and help guide the dog to a relaxed state. You're immediately trying to teach people what to do, typically with a leash.
Well, that's one limited way of using pressure. But yes, instead of energy, I don't use the word energy or even that full understanding there anymore. I look at more of the orientation, the perceiver involved. How are they oriented? And so your clients are oriented through a desperation, right? And so in order to get them to a point where they can receive the pressure psychologically information that you're going to give them to help them understand how to bond better and live better with their dog, you can't talk to a desperate state of mindset, that oriented desperation, right? And so I have to change how they are oriented at the moment. And what I want at that moment is an open-minded, cooperative audience that can receive the information I'm going to give them. Because if they just look at everything, well, how do I do this? How do I do this? I haven't even finished answering how you do the first thing. What a waste of time and energy. So if I don't have the audience I need, then I don't move forward that way. I wait, or I produce another form of pressure to get them off of the ledge that they're hanging on, so that they can receive the information properly and utilize it. And then that's an ongoing thing, because they just keep flipping
So
back.
you're saying, would you say that attention is the highest form of currency?
Awareness is the highest form of currency, because awareness provides you, if you develop it, harvest it, plant it, harvest it, and all that. So you earn awareness. And awareness, the currency can only really buy proximity. And for me, proximity is everything. Time, whether that proximity is 10 seconds from now or 10 months from now. It provides you enough time and space to go over all of the the information you need to proceed, which for me is the actions and outcome options, course of actions and outcome options. If I have 10 minutes to decide how I'm going to save my life here, I'm going to save my life. But if I just recognize I'm in danger and don't know what to do or how to do, then I'm just going to, perish. But attention, I have a cooperation equation, and attention is critical. But the currency is awareness. You can't, even if you don't have any awareness, you can't utilize anybody's attention. But for me, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
Attention, if you want to talk about attention is important. People in the dog world, everybody just, I'm going to try not to go south. I see everything negative first and at the deepest end, and then I have to work my way to the positive. Unfortunately, I'll stay as positive. Unfortunately, most people in the dog industry just want to be somebody. And, if they get a couple of likes and shares, it catches fire. Now they're set. They'll never grow. They're just set in stone because this is what everybody likes and everybody wants. That is a form of attention. Attention is the most important thing, right? It is whoever holds, carries, sustains the most attention is the most important.
If you're trying to teach, attention is, I think, the most important thing, right? And you were talking about teaching either the client or the dog in that moment when you were saying Ben's client was, I feel like you need their attention first so that you can raise their awareness.
You have to have the awareness to be able to raise their awareness. So that becomes first. I don't want to dick around with the order of things. Attention is very important. But my point with attention, the cooperation equation, we want a cooperation, requires attention and information, right? So I'll show you video after video of people who have the dog's attention, but they don't have the appropriate attention. I can show you video after video of dogs giving the appropriate attention, but the human is passing inappropriate information or unhelpful information. It's like a combination lock. You turn it one way, you turn it the other way, and you turn it back, and you can open that lock. If you don't have the right attention for the information that you want to pass, if that information is proper, meaning the human isn't personalizing the situation when they're working with their dog, if they feel anything other than, I'm going to move forward with the thing I want to do, and this is how we're going to do it, they're very composed and direct, decisive, rule number 4. And then they can go about getting the cooperative outcome that they want. But if someone is emotional, then they're just going to pass on that emotion to the dog. And it doesn't matter if they got good attention or bad attention, there's no cooperation going to happen. So if you have a dog who's looking like you're going to hit it and you want to tell it give it any information or direction, you're not going to reach cooperation because he's self-preservation, right? You got a dog who's being defensive at you. I don't care if you give him the clearest information in the world. They can't hear. He's got a different set of orientation frames on.
My mind wasn't going to like a dog that was worried about like that. That isn't a form of attention. I was just trying
it's a form of attention. So there's many forms of attention. So I apologize for interrupting. Please ask me.
No, it's okay. No, just so how about a calm mind who is ready to receive, right? That is an attention
that's an attention that would be nice.
Right.
But it also depends on the context. If a dog is or a human is so calm and ready to receive, but the environment, the situation is amped up, then they're not really ready to receive that kind of information. So it's not just so simple as putting one word down or two words down. It's got to be it's like a chef, and you can put salt in something. It doesn't make it, a gourmet, right? It's when you put the salt and how much you put the salt in, and why you're putting salt in and what temperature the thing was created at before you put this. There's so much.
There's many nuances.
Yeah.
So many nuances that you can get lost in them.
And you should, so that you don't get lost in what you're fucking doing. Right? So the best time to practice any skill that you want or need is when you don't need it. If you try to practice the skill in the moment of something happening, you are going to be lost. So
I love that. I think that's one of your poems in my mind. I actually have it written down here, that the practice a skill when you don't need it, in a sense.
That's the best time.
Right. So say a dog is reactive walking on a leash, okay? And it's reacting to another dog that isn't reacting to it. Okay? It's walking along and it starts reacting. What would you tell that owner
what kind of reaction are we talking about? You see?
Lunging
this is the thing.
forward.
Okay, he's lunging forward, but what's his orientation?
Okay. Well, what do you mean by orientation?
Okay, well, orientation.
Bobby,
how does he identify at that moment? How does he identify at that moment? Does he identify as the target? Does he identify as a villain? Does he identify as the hero? Does he identify, does he identify as, you get what I'm saying, right? So if that
There's
dog.
many nuances.
Right. But saying. So his reaction sounds more defensive because the dog is there. So he's got unrealistic understanding of other perceivers in the environment that is public for everybody to use. So his orientation, the filters, I've got a whole thing. He needs a new filter. His social filter needs to be remodeled. So his reaction, you can't just say a dog is reacting. You've got to know whether he's defending, if he's aggressing, or if he's, how is he believing? That's the pressure. The pressure is that dog entered the environment and this dog reacts. So how does he perceive the pressure? It's a social pressure. We're just walking in the neighborhood, but he perceives it as a threat. So his orientation could be defense or attack, right? If he doesn't, it depends on the rest of the way the dog is made up. But if he sees it as a defensive, he can't be wrong. He cannot get corrected for that. He needs to be taught, this is your area to live in, and you don't need to defend it. I'm not going to correct any dog for defending their life, even if it's misrepresented or misunderstood or misinterpreted.
So how do you help somebody to help their dog understand this? That is, he doesn't need to be defensive in the moment.
Well, I'd find a way to communicate with the dog when there aren't any distractions, when you're not needing the skill, that you can gather the dog's attentive mind to receive information from you, leader, if you will, to then ignore that as something you need to defend. Look to me. And do I look like I need to defend anything? I don't, do I? Okay, well, why don't you mirror me? And when you have a dog that isn't mirroring the human, or maybe they are mirroring the human,
Exactly.
I don't know anything about the human.
Which human is holding the leash as well. That's another
Absolutely.
part of the nuance.
Well, that's why I don't even try to touch the leash until after I've at least seen and they've got to experience how they experience the dog's behavior before we work. Because once I touch it, it alters everything. Because I already know what I want. I already know what I'm going to do. I already know everything. And that...
So when you go into a consultation, you watch the owner handling the dog for how long would you say before you feel, unless safety is an issue, how long would you usually watch an owner handle before you say?
Well, it depends on the issue, but most of the time it's as long as I can get it on video, so I can show what is happening and then show what I do to change it. If I don't have a video camera there, I just want to see a little bit, and then I'll jump in. But sometimes I have to get the people to the deepest level of panic, fear, anxiety, whatever it is, so that then I can be that life jacket or whatever that you would throw out there, life vest, to guide them out of it And then once they see it, feel it, then they believe it, then they'll do anything you ask them to do with their dog.
Would you say that's something you kind of learned in the military, in a sense?
No, they don't want anything about, they don't want you to express your feelings. They want you just to follow an order. And that's why I had a lot of problems. Because I questioned everything. And that's not what they want. And if they had told me, and because I was in an elite unit, right?
Yeah.
If they had told me in the beginning, well, I was successful.
I mean, if you're in an elite union, you are.
No. You're not. Yeah, I was successful, but they were unsuccessful because I would question everything. You understand? And that I could have been successful in it if I had just understood. If they had told me, because of the way where I came from, if they'd have just said, "Hey, look, we got to break you down," it ended up being how I taught students in the original school dog psychology.
To me, when you're explaining it, it seemed like something that happened in a like they would do that in the military too.
That's what they do. They break you down so they can build you up, but they're not prepared for anybody to question that and say, "Hey, I need more information." I get that you're breaking us down, but you're lying to us too. You said to do this. We did that. You're punishing us for doing the thing you said not to do. That's questioning orders. They put everybody in this situation where their minds shut down, and my mind was alive because what they were doing to me was nothing compared to what has happened to me before I even went in. So I'm laughing at all these mama boys and the situation that they're in, and I'm like, "What are you crying about? What the fuck?" Right?
You know who David Goggins is?
I know who David Goggins is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It seems very like you have a similar mind in that sense where you're like someone's trying to break it down and you're like, no, like I'm not.
Yeah, that's not what you said you were going to do. That's not what you told us to do. This is what you said, word for word. Oh,
right.
Upset. But David Goggins, he's a machine. Yeah, but we don't need to get lost on that. But yeah, I was successful in where I went in the Marine Corps. I was not successful in rank. Okay, I got busted a lot. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was still a private first class, right? Because I'd been up and down the ranks so much because I just was always in trouble. So success,
root to fruit,
right? But I got to tell you, if they had just told me in the beginning, we're going to break you down, we're going to lie to you, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we need to push you to a point whether you're going to quit or not. Well, okay, why didn't you just say that? I'd have fucking done that I did it all day anyway. I just would have left my mouth shut and probably would have had better success. I'm a rare breed, type of a person with all my quirky things that if you just explain it to me and I understand it, you can burn me, drown me, do whatever you want. If all you want is just me not to quit, that's not but I can't be blamed for something you told me to do and we did it.
Sounds like sometimes when dogs don't understand from humans' perspective, because you know what I'm saying? Because the human isn't communicating properly to the dog. You were the dog in that situation to humans.
Through the cooperation equation, yeah, well, either way, I was a dog and they were passing information that they had lined up and it didn't match what I was. So there was no cooperation. Right. But yeah, so there's I forget what we were talking about, but
we spun off. It's okay. It's all good.
That's the kind of conversation you like.
Yeah. To me, I want to just follow your conversation where it goes. And when I can, I'm going to snip in and try to connect somewhere where I feel like I can bring it back to like anchor it in a bit.
Yeah. Again.
Yeah.
I feel like that's why I've always been drawn to Lynn too, is especially once I got to know him a bit, is that he came up a lot harder, obviously, than how I grew up. There were similarities in it where, I had a hard time with just learning and school and just throughout that process. And then I remember some of the things he would say, I was like, oh, that's like the very reason why I probably get into dogs in the very beginning is it was something I was drawn to.
They understood.
Yeah, it was something I was drawn to because there was an easier way to get to that, a healthy agreement, I would say, with a dog in comparison to people or more specifically me teaching, like this is my first dog in general, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was
it's tough. Just one of my diagnoses, if you will, ADHD, right? Just one of them. And well, let's back it up to just my ability to comprehend things. And the teacher, this is grade school, teacher would, talk and write, and I would raise my hand and I said, I don't know what you said there or what you mean. And so she would explain it to me, and then I still don't understand. So she would march her little cankles over to me and explain it to me again. And I still don't understand because she's getting angry. I snap back. I'm a sarcastic little kid. And she'd send me to the office. And then I was the last kid in my school that was allowed to be paddled by the principal. And then he would call my dad, who then would actually do the abuse when I got home. The next day I'd come into class and everybody's like giggling, "You're so funny." I'm like, "Oh, well, I had no idea." That's attention, right? Getting attention, good or bad. But here's the problem. The teacher at the board explained everything. When I raised my hand and asked, she explained everything the same way.
Same
When I
exact
said, "I
way.
don't know what you mean," she marched over and explained it exactly the same way. I needed it different. Back in the 70s, when I was in grade school, they didn't know anything about ADHD and all that stuff. They had no clue. I just was a problem kid. And so, again,
No,
and then
maybe
go
you
on to
didn't
the
have the
abuse.
right. You didn't have the right person trying to teach you and lead you. Someone that could have changed a
Well,
perspective.
what are you going to do?
Yeah,
What are you going to do at that time? That's all that was available.
yeah. It's just
that
it's
goes
just
back to
unfortunate.
the Rottweiler that's lunging at the dog. That's why he answers it the way he does, because he doesn't know the context of it all.
Context is important. The situation is very important. The perceiver, and all three of us have different ways of looking at any one thing. And even if we just bring a word up, we all have a different meaning for it, which shades the way we are oriented to it, which then affects how we work with whatever it is that then becomes an outcome that are three different outcomes.
Yeah, and plus every experience we've ever experienced is different than any experience you've ever experienced, in a sense, and every experience we've ever experienced comes out in every moment we live. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
that's the
that
perceiver. That's the
exactly.
important part of the perceiver. That's why I don't call it species, because I could still have 15 dogs in here and they could all have a different perception of me and what it is I want. And so it's a
Hello.
perceiver. Same with a
Did you?
bear and a skunk and a squirrel and a chicken.
Can you try that again, Lynn? You froze just for 1 second.
You froze for a second there.
What
You said
second did I
we
freeze?
got the last second you said was I could have 15 dogs in here, and
Yeah, I
it
got
froze.
15 dogs and they all have a different perception of me and each other and what we're doing. And then you go on to bears and skunks and possums, all the other perceivers that you could interact with on a regular basis around the environment that you're in. So, and of course, the further away they get from human, the more base they are. You talking about bear or skunk, they're really more focused on survival and things like that. So they don't have the social
So the farthest
breakdowns.
from us would be a wolf, basically, in the dog kingdom.
If you want to stick with dogs, you can, sure. A wolf is going to be, they're social with each other, but they're not going to be social with humans and kids and even dogs unless the dog is feral enough to get involved. But otherwise, it's food and or enemy. And so that's then how their pressure lens understanding is limited, right? So, and not even ours is limited too. If you look at everything, if you got 10 people in here, each one of them had, again, a different way of living. Each one of them are either someone's child or have a child. They all have a grandma and grandpa. They've all been raised from infant to senior citizen and will all die. So you have to look at whatever lens they have on at that time. You take a preteen, they're not going to understand the same thing as an adult. And same thing with a toddler or a adolescent. Or even then we branch out with how they identify, and they believe that there are more than two sexes, right? There are only two sexes. You can identify with however you want, but you cannot have a child. But you understand?
Yeah.
No man is going to be able to, no matter what they do with the plumbing, they're not going to be able to produce a child. And I'm not saying anything about what anybody identifies. I'm saying that at the base, it's male or female.
Scientifically,
And then
biologically.
if you go talk to one of these owners and you're working with a dog who's reacting defensively, and you try to talk to them the way you would a regular person, but they've got a teenager who identifies as a cat. Okay. You have to understand how that message you're going to pass is going to be passed down the line in the family, or be while you're doing it, giving the information to the family. So the more you understand about your own species, every stage of life, and possible viewpoints from that life needs to be understood before you start giving information to a family.
That's why an open-minded person that's in like wants to learn is the best, or dog. Like you have a dog that's like wants to like look up to you with that look like, what are we doing next kind of thing.
Yep,
not like, are you going to hit me? Not that. I wasn't thinking that, but like
I'm not saying you were thinking that. I'm saying that you need to be thinking that's an option. And if somebody doesn't see that what they did causes the dog to feel like they're going to get hurt and continue on with what they're doing, they are no longer in an appropriate pressure exchange to communicate wants and needs.
So would you say
it's up and down all the time?
Would you say that, can I ask one quick question? Would you say that an owner's biggest responsibility is to stop a dog from being in a fight, flight state and getting them into a calmer state before moving on to the next thing? If there was one nugget you can teach like an owner to do, would you say that that's like one of the most important, at least, if not the most important?
I never want to stop a dog from doing anything. I want to look at what they're doing, understand why they're doing it, and then provide them something else to do that I do want them to do, which automatically stops them from doing the thing I don't want them to do. But if we just keep focusing on what we don't want them to do,
right,
that's what's going to happen more often. So it's not I'm not messing with the words. I'm saying it's a critical understanding. You can't just say that, because if you say one thing, you have to understand how everybody else perceives it. And when they perceive it this way, they're going to follow that line down of understanding. And then at some point, you're going to say something that doesn't match what they're saying, and they're completely lost. So for an owner in this case, there is no one nugget, but I would want them to look first. I'd be able to identify that they are in a survival mode,
fight,
flight, freeze.
Avoidance.
They're in survival. You cannot really just take them out of that. You have to kind of ride that out.
Help to guide them out would be a better way of describing it.
You can't guide it. You have to. When a dog is in full flight, full fight, full fight, full freeze, you can't guide them out of that. You have to just kind of wait, and if you need to, you move to a less intense environment, or remove the intense things that's triggering it. But it's gotta peter out. You can't guide instinct, like the animal instinct in all of us. You can't guide that. Once that hits, the adrenaline is fueling it. It's got to run its course.
Say a little kid is starting to freak out, and then a father calmly puts a hand on the child and says, "Calm down, I got you," helps you out. Like, that's
freak out isn't the same thing as being in a survival mindset. And this is what it's important. When people say, the dog's freaking out, my dog's a dick, I can't help anybody that doesn't see that what you're saying is you're projecting your emotions onto the dog. So if you say a kid's freaking out, am I to assume that he's like shit himself? Am I to assume that he dropped his crackers?
No,
But we were talking I'm
to
not.
be
I'm not trying to.
excited in a
I'm not
sense,
trying to say that you're bad. I'm saying that words are important, and meaning of words and understanding is critical. And so, someone could hear my dog freaks out or my kid freaks out, and they'll give you advice based on what their understanding of freak out is, and it could be not even close to what's necessary. So we were talking about survival mode, fight, flight, freeze, and then you said a kid freaking out. So that's not even the same.
Okay.
Okay, now there's a kid. I put a video up a while back on stories. I love it because he's like frozen. He's not even breathing, but you can see his face is in complete terror because he's got some bug on him, right? And you can hear the dad in the background, well, breathe, buddy, breathe. And so when he did start to breathe, now you're hearing the crying that the face looks like. The kid has just never experienced that bug or that type of thing before. And so at that age, he's only got his instinctual side and he shut down. So the dad didn't say breathe and calm the kid down. He said breathe at a perfect timing when the kid didn't have, his face was red and he had no more oxygen, and instinctually he had to gasp some air. And now we can hear everything his face was screaming, right? But the dad can't calm that down. He can hold him and cuddle him and all that stuff, but that's just all waiting.
He could move the bug away, Goldilocks
Of
it.
course.
You know
of
what
course.
I'm saying? That's
but you're still not going to stop the crying. You're still not going to stop the terror. You're not going to do anything other than wait until it comes down to a level where it's a child now, and you can say, hey, look, that bug was this, this, and this, and let's go look at it in the encyclopedias so that you understand it can't bite you, it can't harm you, and you know what? Let's go out and do some bugs. Let's look for bugs, and you can then alter that kid's direction. But if you yell at them and scream at them or do anything like that, now the kid's got a permanent association to any bug, right?
So basically, the guiding figure needs to be in a calm guiding sort of way.
You're stuck on guiding because I get it. It's the language you guys use.
I'm talking about teaching somebody or something.
I want to tell you about. I want to tell you. So, for anybody to guide anybody means they have a knowledge. They've either been there, they've seen it, they understand it, they know what to do and how to do it, right? But that doesn't mean you can stop the instinctual side of self-preservation survival mode with that knowledge. If you have that knowledge, you understand you have to wait until. Now, you can calm and coo a kid all you want if you have this knowledge, but that calming and cooing and stroking is not what's bringing the kid back to the animal inside the kid back to a kid. It has to run its course. And as it runs its course, it's then wakes up, so to speak, in dad's or mom's arms being soothed, which then feels good. Most parents, most people who say they're guides, oh, it's all done. But no, that's not done. It's done for that bug. But if I want to avoid that problem, when he's 25, not a bug, some other thing that causes him to shut down and make poor decisions based on this learning, well, then I want to be there for when he comes out of that animal side and becomes my child again, so that I can say, hey, look, this is this and that, the other thing, and let's go look it up and let's look at the other thing. And what do you think about it now? It's not so scary, right? Okay, let's go find one. And you point one that's, okay, see how you feel right there? Let's stand right here then. We don't need to go any closer.
Right.
Okay, this is guiding, right? Then let's take another step. Okay, you don't want to take another step. That's guiding, but you can't just say guiding. People don't even understand what guiding is anymore. They're just buzzwords. I get it. But if I ask you those questions, would you have been able to answer it that way? Right?
Yeah, no, that's what I love about you, is because you have all the nuances. You have like an answer each individual nuance. So, but that is also what cripples you in a sense, because then you get caught, not caught.
I don't get caught. People don't want to follow me. And so I get caught by not being attractive enough for people to come because there's a lot of work involved. And so I do suffer financially and socially even because of this torture.
Gift. It's a gift, and it's a sword. It's a double-edged sword.
Well, I don't know if it's a gift, but
it is a
you can
gift.
give it back if it's a gift.
It is a gift. Don't
Can't give
even
gifts
think
back.
it isn't for a second.
I'm not giving it back. I understand that
You
I
do give it
have
back.
this.
You share it with
no, I
people
mean, I'm
all
not
the
going to
time.
give the gift back to where
You
it came
can't.
from because
can't.
it's
Part
not
of
a
you.
gift.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
It's
now
all
we're
on the
just
perceiver.
right. And I am the owner of it. And I'm saying that if it were a gift, it came in a bruised color wrapping with a bloody colored bow. Okay. So no, it didn't feel like a gift, but I understand the results. I understand the outcome.
Everybody
It is
needs to go
disappointing
through exactly
when,
what they go through, though. Like
right.
it is, but it is a gift in a sense. Yeah,
Okay. I'll take it. It's a gift, but what's disappointing is that people see it as a gift. They say they want to learn it as a gift, but they don't come. They don't follow it down to the gift part of it. They just like the buzzwords. They like to either have it on their resume. Some people utilize it. Uh, they utilize the best they can, and when it doesn't fit anymore, they just go back to what they were doing, which isn't necessarily bad. For instance, I know Wing Chun Kung Fu, right? But when I first started it, and I'd probably still do it today, that if I got into trouble, I would fall back into my wrestling because that was my imprint.
Base.
And so you guys have an imprint and you want to learn something new and you want to try to apply it, but then you don't have my guidance 100%. And so you go back to your base. And so it drops off for a lot of people and it falls away. So I just I'm writing a book and I'm doing all this other stuff. And hopefully then it'll be available for everybody anywhere and they can see how it's used and utilized and how you can benefit. And so I have identified and defined everything that happens in your average life that you will run into, you'll encounter, the feelings, the emotions, the demonstration of intent, and all the outcome. I've labeled them, and I've chunked a lot of stuff into one label, but it's still there. It's all labeled, identified, and defined. It's there. I'm not a scientist, but it's the same everywhere. Everywhere I look, I can point out what rule, what part of the structure it's in, what part of the foundation it comes from. It's just basically an algorithm I've created that you can funnel in and know what to do. But obviously, there are awareness opportunity points. So I'm not going to go deep on everything. It's just if you like this opportunity point, come back to it and dive deeper into it yourself. Uh, pressure works with any species, but it's best that you understand the species you're going to use it on. You can't use the same intensities or amount of pressure for certain species. So the crocodile hunter and the snake hunters, they understand how that species works. That's why they can jump on their back and then not get attacked and then close their mouth with like 10 pounds of pressure and tape because they can't open it. But it's the closing that you got to worry about. The same thing with snakes. They've got a certain amount of distance they can go, and when you can understand that range, you can look like a superhero. I'm not doing anything different when I work with aggressive dogs. I am looking at what they feel, what they have practiced and experienced in their life, and how they're projecting it onto me. And when I understand that, then I understand what I want to do, and I start creating a common ground of understanding through like a negotiation, so to speak. It's a pressure exchange. And you're gonna brr at me? Well, I'm not doing anything. How's that make you feel? So I'm gonna at you. I'm still not doing anything. How's that? I'm gonna at you. I'm really simplifying this, right? But the idea is that what you think is happening isn't. I'm not going away. I'm not attacking you. So give me the next thing.
Iteration.
So it's iteration. So it's lower. So It doesn't mean anything to me, big fella. And so they give me this, and then I can ultimately do whatever I want with that dog because they've learned that I can communicate with them. And it's no different than taking somebody who, have you seen that video with Metallica, One? All that I see, all that I hear.
Yeah.
Right.
The
So
song,
it was from a guy who can't hear, can't
Johnny got his
speak.
gun.
Right. But he was texting with his movements, SOS.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. They actually use it in the song.
Da, 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 da. But the point is that I could write his biography because he already knows Morse code. I could write his biography. You know, I could do the same thing with the dogs. All I'm doing is giving them a predictable way to communicate with you. I'm going to do this, but most importantly is how I feel and how I present what I'm doing. And that's going to be the same every time for the dog. Then once they trust that, then it's just the new thing that I'm adding in. And since they already have this pattern that they're following that seems to be working, this new thing I need to learn, is it this, Lynn? No. Is it this, Lynn? No. Is it good job? Wow. Right? They start offering me what I expect. And that's in the beginning stages, right? That the whole point is to teach them a basic code that we're going to communicate with, and then we'll expand on it. And
which is your pressure matrix. Basically.
Yeah. The pressure matrix is it's a common ground for understanding, universal between all species. And it's the same 6 root forms of pressure, no matter what. And they can, as they get up into the human area where we can use different words and things like that, then we can change the word, but it has to connect to the root. Right? No, I'm not bitching anymore about leash pressure, but it is stupid because pressure, the most important part of pressure is that it's experienced, and no dog experiences the leash. They experience the pressure physically through what the human is doing with the leash, which the leash is just an extension of your hand. And so if you're squeezing the leash, you're squeezing with your hand. And when people they think they got a leash, I'm like, no, my hand is extra long here at the end, and I am communicating with the dog. And
there's touch.
Intensity and sensitivity
touch going on in the leash. There's feel and touch. People don't understand that's part of the nuance of the pressure matrix is you're applying exact amount of pressure necessary for that dog in that moment. Correct?
Yeah, it's surgery, you know.
Yeah, there's a feel, and like if you're riding a horse, right, and you know how much you want to pull in on the reins to get the horse to move this way or that way. There's a feel and a touch.
Think of it this way, like parallel parking a boat, right?
I've never driven a boat. If you want to, there's Ben.
No, parallel parking your car with a boat at the end of it. You know how to parallel park a car, but now you got to parallel park the boat and your car. So understand, and I don't want to get stuck on leash because that's all people think pressure is leash. It's not. The video I posted today is clear. And I put a leash on that bird. That bird didn't put a leash on my dogs. But it guided us right out of the...
Which is a pressure exchange, correct?
Well, it's not energy, but I get what you're saying.
Pressure.
Energy isn't a pressure. Energy is
I'm sorry.
It's how you feel and how you present how you feel and what you're going to do with it. But yes, I'm not upset with you. I get it. It's the language you guys are used to. And so in that case, I would say yes. But when people don't understand what energy is and you tell them energy all fucking day long, they just sit there and take it because they don't want to sound stupid by saying, what's energy? And this guy keeps talking about energy, That happened to me in the very beginning of my career before, Caesar was huge. And then all of you guys were created because even when I was listening to Caesar, I was like, oh Christ, was he going to get the incense candles out next? What the fuck's he talking about? Can you feel the energy, Lynn? And I was like, sure. You know what the fuck he was talking about. then when you pass that on, people are like, oh, here comes the witchcraft now. What the fuck? So you have to be prepared for that when you're talking to somebody. So that's why I'm really careful with the words I use. They become actions that you've chosen, you know? And when people don't reply, you have to wonder, do they understand everything I'm saying? And a lot of trainers, unfortunately, they got a script and they got to get through that script. And if what you're doing doesn't match the script, they don't care. They've got to say the script. They got to perform the script. But that isn't dog psychology. That isn't even dog training. That's just, these are the words I know. These are the words I've been told.
It's a pitch.
It is a pitch. It's a pitch script.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I could show you videos of students I followed around, and I'm like, everything you said were words that have been out there, but not a single action matched a word you used. So that doesn't make any sense. To memorize, look, when you come to me, first thing you learn is that learn, practice, master, begin again starts at the learn, which is to memorize. Yes, memorize my script, but then you've got to get into the practice and internalize those words with your actions and understand what they are. And then my script becomes your script. And then you master it by becoming what you're saying. It's very
basically get the knowledge, then get your hands on dogs with the correct knowledge, and now you have to put it into practice. If you,
but nobody does. They go start a business.
No. I'm saying back in the day, you had your school. Todd comes in, gets the correct knowledge. Then after that, he has to start putting his hands on lots of dogs so that he can practice it and master it eventually, right? Then begin again eventually, right?
Yeah, it's like grade school, though. You're learning, practicing, mastering, begin again every
second of your life.
We're going to learn some basic addition. Now we're going to learn some of the words, how to spell words. Now we're going to learn some science. And throughout the day, it's a learn, practice, master, begin again in one day. So at some point, you're learning something while you're practicing another thing that you've mastered here, and you're beginning again on something. It's all happening all at the same time. And what I've done, like I said, is I've separated out to its granular stages and dissected it so you can see what it is. And then we start putting this with that. But it's different. Of course it's different because the two of them together.
Everything is different.
The third's
exactly the same, but completely different.
Exactly. That's it right there. So I could take Tide laundry detergent, very useful household item. I could take gasoline, a very useful, travel item, to run things and generate things. But I could put them together, and now it is napalm, and the Tide sticks to the bodies and doesn't stop burning. So it's all, everything is there. I'm giving all the ingredients, but putting them together, you have to see how they form and what they make. And too much of this and too much of that makes too much of this, which eliminates all of this. I'm being silly, but the idea is to learn the word, learn the letters, let's just look at that root to fruit. Children, they start mimicking sounds that the parents make to them, and now the parent believes it's time to start teaching. So we'll start with the sound of a letter A, right? And then that A becomes a B, and then it becomes the ABCs song, right? And when you get tired of hearing that song, you should understand you're behind schedule. You need to start making words with those letters because all they know is the song. But each stage, they don't even understand the ABCs are an actual
language
code.
Basically,
it's a code to create words with. So each stage, just with the alphabet, before we ever write words, they go through 3, 4, 5 different levels of understanding. And depending on the guide will determine the level of their understanding. And so,
and you got to learn to spell them. Then you got to learn what they mean in context. Then you got to put them into sentences. Then you got to put them into paragraphs.
Don't forget your punctuation.
Yeah, and there's all the in betweens, and there's
and that's just the words, letters.
And that's just when when you're a kid and then you have kids and you gotta restart back.
And that's just one person's experience. Then you have another person's complete different experience that has to come into it, and they have to interact in a sense and then miscommunicate between that language that is so, I don't know, flawed in a sense, because it's doesn't really encapsulate a word. It's like you're kind of describing a word, but it's like defining the word definition, right, Lynn?
Yeah. So seriously though, I mean, so if you look at the language you guys use, next time you use some of those words that are just so random pocket change to you now, look at the perceiver that you're giving the information to and see all their little nuanced expressions and positions and breathing to see if they even understand or even on the same page. And you can use whatever language you want, but the key is to understand whether somebody is sticking with you or not. If you use the language you use and you recognize somebody is not there, you have to stop and you have to explain, or at least ask, where did I lose you? And then go off on that tangent like Lynn always does, and then come back and pick up where you left off. It's no different than saying, can you hang on? Hey, hang on. I know. Hang on 1 second. Hello? Yeah, okay. I'll be right there to get it. All right. Hey, so I got to pick up my stuff at the door. You just pick up where you left off. That's all it is. Right. And so the idea is to be able to multitask these things. And part of the awareness is to be aware as to whether or not whoever you're communicating with is even on the same page, or better yet, just being in the same book. I don't care if you're on the same page, if you're not in the same book. If they're oriented differently, I keep going like this because in my class, we're developing orientation frames, and we're fine tuning our lenses as we go. And if you've got somebody you're talking to that isn't same orientation that you have or wanting to help them with, you have to help them with that before you can help them with the information. And that's the same thing with the dogs, even more so. And that's where I see a lot of problems, is people are just doing things to a dog and accepting whatever happens as I succeeded, whether it's suppression or not, whether it's suppression or cooperation. So I've got my little everything. So you got one thing, it covers everything. You see how I did that? So for me, there is suppression, then there's submission. Suppression. Then there's am I talking out loud? What's that word? It's a very important word for, huh?
We can edit it.
No. It's an important word though. So you can suppress a dog, or you can shut them down, suppress them. You can get them to, like, I don't want to go to jail, but I also don't want my arms twisted and dragged across the concrete. So I will.
What's
that
not,
word?
It's like compliance or.
Compliance. So there's suppression. Then there's compliance, which I don't want to do the thing, but I'll do it. Then there's surrender, where I'll just open up to whatever, agree. And then there's levels of cooperation, okay, that lead to cooperation. And a lot of trainers I see, they just get the dog into a suppressive state and they call it success. And then they go on and teach.
So the minimum you have to do is to get them to a neutral state. Wouldn't you say that? The very minimum
neutral?
Is good. Where neutral is the stimulus is nearby and the dog is calm and not reacting.
Hey, what he's saying, Bobby, is that
neutral
could appear calm but just be suppressed.
No,
does that make sense to you?
Literally,
yeah.
Like you could tell
quiet but not calm.
Like, mouth open, ears low, just kind of like actually relaxed. You can tell when a dog is relaxed. If you have skill, like Lynn, I know can tell when a dog is relaxed. I can tell when a dog is relaxed. You can tell when a dog, not the average person can, but the three of us can usually tell when a dog is at least in a state near calm, if not completely calm. No? Would you
go ahead and get to the point that you want to make with that. I'll just agree that yes, a dog is calm. And then where did you want to go with that?
then that's ultimately what a good trainer can at least do, get to that base level of a dog being calm around whatever it is. And then would you say they're at least a decent trainer? But if they're doing the suppression and that, what you were mentioning before, that would be a bad trainer, correct? In a sense,
or an uninformed trainer. I mean, there again,
well,
I did
not as good as they could be. Good, better, best. They're definitely not.
Look,
best.
all my only role in life is to help people improve. I'm not out there looking for great trainers.
Right.
They're great. I don't need to help them. They all could use help, but I don't need to help them. So I did an analysis on a very social media popular trainer, and it got some flack from everybody. And my point of I'm taking a guy who, let's run through that route to fruit. All right. So we got this kid who was a dog walker. He's trying to learn dog psychology best he can. And one day he does something and a video catches fire and he goes viral and he starts getting all these followers. Well, they really liked when I talked like that. And so now it's all he does is talk like that. And so every word he's been conditioned to believe that every single thing he does, every word that he speaks is the gospel and has to be. He can't see that what he's doing is overpowering, suppressing, too much, this and that. He can't see it because he's rewarded on a daily basis.
He's not getting any cooperation.
He thinks he is, though.
Yeah,
but he thinks he is.
I saw that he's yanking the dog. The dog is pulling.
The point is the lack of understanding or wanting to learn more. And my biggest point is I see everything. So it won't be long before he has shadow programs. And we already see what happens with Dog Daddy out there. And he's doing shadow programs and people are going to learn that. And I can show you videos where people are trying that and getting bit and don't know what to do with this dog that they swung around in the end of the leash. And so what I'm saying is that we got to be very careful with what we put out because people are influenced by that. At a minimum, they're trying to emulate it because it worked for you. I'll do it too. But that's at their level of physical and psychological understanding of whatever, and lacking dog psychology understanding. And they're doing the action they saw. So kids, they don't do what we say, they do what we do. And so I learned this in my first school. I would go and I'd work with the dogs, just like you see Caesar doing. It's all stuff I can do. Who cares, right? I started getting the videos back from all my students, and they were doing what I was doing instead of what I told them to do. Even though I stopped everything, look, I'm dealing with the worst of the worst. You guys are coming in at an opportune moment. You know, I can't slow things down for you, but I can explain what you need to do for your level. But they wouldn't do that. So I had to start. This one time was very funny. I had to start asking owners to put muzzles on their dogs and stuff like that so that the students could see, oh, well, Lynn's putting a muzzle on it. It must be all right. And one time I get real excited about the ability to communicate in the extremes and bring a dog down to, like nothing ever happened. And so when this dog was it was a door, but the window was up here and he was jumping up and pounding. I was like, I immediately started opening the door. I grabbed the first thing, which was like a broom, and I was on my way out there. And I was like, oh shit, I got students. And I stopped. And I swear, if I could see it from the outside, it was like a Three Stooges because boom, 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 boom. They all were on their way with me. And that's what I mean. They were on their way with me. This is what I want to do. That's not what you can do. All right. And that then became my responsibility to be very careful with what I do because people are just looking for that. It's natural. I understand it.
I know.
So does every other person, and they need to understand there's more. Anyway, go ahead.
I know that one thing that you really do not want is to be misunderstood. That is a big fear of yours.
Misunderstood, yeah.
Correct? And I think that is why you have a lot of the issues you have with former students because you feel that you've been misunderstood and they're practicing these things incorrectly and passing it on to other people. And I want to say, I don't think you should feel that way. I think you should continue to teach the way you teach, and what people are going to pick up what they're going to pick up, and it's not your
I'm not
It's not your
showing any
fault
techniques
one way or other.
anymore until they
I know you're
understand
not.
the information.
Yeah,
I've learned that because it's not the misunderstanding. Some of those people had negative intentions to go and just steal, and that's fine, whatever. So they take something they just learned and they're going to go and teach it. Great. You've made a success of yourself. That's fantastic. That's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about the wake of people that gets their portion of
trickle
that
out.
person's portion. And that's still not even my worry. My
Yeah.
worry is the thousands of dogs, each one of them are practicing and failing and not knowing what to do. That's you practice with a punching bag before you get into the fight. You don't tie somebody to a chair and punch them so you can learn how to punch. And I've watched, I mean, the biggest thing, when you saw Ian Grant the first time he did like a little diary after my first day or after I left a 5-day out there, that, if you watch that video, his shameful look and his head down low, and he worked with hundreds of dogs, maybe even thousands of dogs in between where he learned that and when I went there. That damage is what concerns me. That's the damage that concerns me. And when I see like the guy I did that video on the other day, he's got 254,000 followers, right? So let's just say 254,000 people try to do that one thing. That's 254,000 dogs that are being mistreated, misunderstood, communicated improperly with, and they get punished for their reaction to the poor information.
But how about also you've taught Todd? He has 150,000 followers, and all those people are getting.
I don't have a problem with Todd.
You know, I know. I'm just saying though, you can't.
That was Todd got to go through the course that I would still do today if it wasn't. If I wasn't.
I wish you would. I wish you still had that.
Gaslighted into believe I wasn't allowed to.
I really wish you still had that course.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I did.
I was told I was wrong, bad.
I know.
By important people.
I know.
That the years later, I'm still like gun shy, right? Even that video that I did, the people that are disagreeing, that they're just saying that they didn't like what I said, but they're not even looking at what I said. They didn't like that I used arrogant and that. And so that then becomes the offshoot, right? Instead of the information that I'm breaking down a video of somebody who has, a following, and I'm not even really talking about him. I'm talking about everybody who's watching me break down this video and look at yourself and improve. When I talk about his leash technique being good, someone should look at that and say, I don't have that technique. I should improve that. When I say that his physical movements are good, I don't have that. I should learn that. When I say he doesn't understand opposition reflex, well, shit, I don't understand opposition reflex. But everybody just wants to think that I'm trying to get views and carry off of his. I give a shit about. Right. Is that my thing that's echoing?
It won't come up on the podcast.
Okay, so that's what I'm concerned about. The damage of all the dogs that he's done, not with intention, just not understanding what he's doing, and the people that's learning. I don't have to do anything other than feel the way I feel. I can give it to everybody's telling me how I got to fucking work and feel, but nobody lets me tell everybody else how they can improve. Right?
Yeah.
I don't.
You have that right to do so. You know what I'm saying?
To my own demise.
Or people listen that really do believe in your methods, and they go, okay, yeah, I see what he's talking about there, and they use that as knowledge. You can't. It's
a problem because I only have 90 seconds to put out everything, and so I'm going to do my Instagram 90 seconds, but I'm going to set up a YouTube thing where I can spend an hour breaking down the information necessary to improve. It's the worst thing to have, and I don't even reply to, and some of them are my friends. I don't even reply to him. Yeah, that guy's a piece of shit, or he's this or that. I don't even reply to that because that's not even the point I'm making. I just utilized his video.
That's right.
The point is I can't sit there and do everybody's analysis. I got to pick one at a time. And I'm not analyzing the trainer. I'm analyzing what everybody could use to improve. And I do it through that individual because it's their video. It's the same thing at talking to people. I don't understand English very well. And so I say you a lot when I'm actually talking about us, we, everyone. And so people are like, they start getting defensive. No, I don't. No, I don't. I'm like, oh, I'm not talking about you. That was a pronoun.
Just using the word, yes.
So when I see that stuff all the time, then I guarantee that people hearing energy and this and that and the other thing without any definitions and examples, they're doing the same thing. Well, I didn't do anything, only they're not saying, I'm stupid, I don't know what that means. I'll just let you keep talking and maybe I'll catch up. That's what people do. It's a natural thing. I'm just saying, whether anybody recognizes it or not, it happens. And I've experienced it enough in my lifetime that I can point it out. And then people really don't like being seen through an x-ray machine. So, but the point is I just want to show everybody that here's a better example. Go to any viral video and go into the comments and see how many of the comments have nothing to do with the post or the video. Somebody got offended because everybody's got their own orientation frames on when they answer or reply to something, and somebody else with another orientation comes in and disagrees and gets angry, and it just piles on. Yeah. That's
why when I go to the comments, I just look for the funny stuff and I leave. I don't get into any arguments. I don't do any of that stuff.
Well, even right there, my point is that the confusion that goes on in the comments.
I feel you.
You're a nice guy. I love you. And you wanted to point out that you just laugh at but that wasn't even my point. My point is that no one is on the same fucking page.
I get it. And that's what I can't worry about what everybody else is doing all the time. I can only worry about what I'm doing and what I'm going to go to that comment section, look for the funny ones and leave. I'm not going to get caught up on those ones where the people are all fighting each other because that's not going to help me out.
But you can learn.
No, well, I can also
you can learn other people's orientations. Well, that person's defensively oriented. That person's confrontational. That person is very passive and is stuck in the middle of this and that. Those are important pieces on the chessboard that you should learn. How people respond, even from a chair in another city, state, or country.
It's always different. It's always different if you're behind
if you're the same thing when they're in front of you.
Or you're in your car and you're road raging somebody. But then if you're standing right next to somebody toe to toe, it's different. People have different personas
it's when they're out in the mind. They may not announce it because they don't want to get into a confrontation, but it's in their mind. And if you try to teach that mind something important, then they will start to do the arguing and they will start to defend and they will start to displace and deflect. And that's the point here is to learn, to teach. I'm teaching. So, yes, I'm just saying that there is a way for everybody to communicate properly. And that is to first make sure we're all in the same book.
On that note, we're going to end the podcast. But
are we done?
Stay on. Yeah, we're like an hour and something, 20. Hour and 15.
Dang, we didn't even get to answer all the questions.
We didn't get to any questions, but
maybe all good. Part 2.
Yeah, definitely.